very good thing. And I say it like that because sometimes when you are in the midst of a meditation practice, you may not recognize that. The clear pathway that lies in front of you that is designed to create ease within your life. For me, I want you to understand your practice as deeply and as clearly as you possibly can. So that being said, if I am not ever making sense to you, then you should really ask me questions to clarify a particular section that might be challenging you. So don't be shy. To continue with this very practical meditation that we have, it speaks through the avenue of your own direct experience. And that's how practical meditation is. So it's actually not deviating in any way, shape, or form away from your own personal worlds. And your personal world is one part fiction, and within that fiction there could be some fantasy, and the other part reality. And within that reality there might be a bit of denial. But as it comes towards you, it is all experienced as very tangible. And that tangibility is actually what we want to center ourselves around. The fact that you create a tangible experience from what occurs within your own mind. So then it's dealing with, well, what is this fiction and what is non-fiction? And sometimes this can be a bit of a challenging topic to talk about because of the very nature of the human being and how we tell ourselves a storyline. But I feel that it is very important when it comes to a meditation practice to establish oneself as best as one can within a dimension of reality. So then how does meditation aid in the developing of that? It aids in that development in the sweetest way possible. And that sweetness uses a tool of communication that is more subtle than the object which you are identifying with. So that object can be a storyline, it can be a visual experience, it can be anything that the mind is producing. That which meditation is working on, that sweetness, is that which is more subtle than the object which you are engaging with. So what that means is that if there's any weight to that which you are experiencing, then it will follow and be able to collect itself back again in this new definition of what is your sensory experience, what is your breathing rhythm, what is the quality of space of your mind, and we'll be able to collect once again into something tangible. And this is now the beauty which is being developed within the practice of yoga, because it's sharpening your skill of discernment. Because we have to really remind ourselves often when we're working with our own mind that the element which is doing the watching, which is doing the observing, oftentimes is not necessarily the delegator of decision. That which is delegating decision comes from a side-moving experience of mind. So this is this self-identifying piece that is saying, I am, I am, I am. And left to its own device, it creates reality out of these storylines, whether they're fiction or based in truth and reality. So what we are learning is how to discern between the sensation that is coming from the side-moving mind and the sensation which is coming from this increasingly depth of subtlety within your mind. And in that, we can begin to choose which we're going to follow. Does this make sense? And they have incredibly distinct rhythms. There's a rhythm that is felt within the body. It plays within the subtlety of your breathing, and it's found as it manifests within the mind. So now that's 3 opportunities for us to catch and make the choice. So now what this doubles as is a manifestation tool, if you want to look at it that way. Because that which maybe is in this realm of fiction, maybe visualization, seeing it as being the ideal, as it's pulled down and it has weight because it is for you, it becomes that much more tangible and real. And it establishes itself literally into the nervous system and into the tissue of the body. Now, once it engages with that, then we can start to do something with it. So it's coming out of the constructs of mind and into the doing action of the body so that we can do something with it within our physical reality. So this is the benefit of seeing the body as equal with your meditation as the mind. So we're really grounding the information that you experience as maybe even lofty concepts into very simple, tangible, usable pieces of information. This works directly with your belief system. Primarily, and maybe most importantly, the belief system that you have with yourself. So the self meaning not this depth of experience that is this original expression of who you are, but yourself, which is connected to this I am self-identifying component of our mind. So this ongoing dialogue. And it's fantastic how articulate it can be and how convincing some of the dialogue is. But whether or not it's true, this is the maturing point within a meditation practice and maybe even within a human being as an individual and potentially even as a society, species, if you want to go that far. This maturing element of whether or not that which is being said is true. And it really seems funny when you start to think of it out loud, because the manifestation of one's reality is based so much on this architecture that the dialogue lives in, which means there's an immense amount of effort that's placed on building on the construct of a mind in order to house this particular language. So now we all know, if you have an apartment, or if you have a condo, if you have a house, there's a part of you that maybe wants somewhere new, but there's another part of you that's like, but I don't feel like moving. So we can think of it like that. It is like that. It's actually easier to just stick with this dialogue and maintain within those margins. So now, a part of that architecture and construct is that voice of reason that you hear that keeps you going in a particular direction. And that piece, that element, is what we want to refine within our meditation practice. We want to bring it down to an increasingly more subtle realm, more subtle than that which it is speaking at, so that we can see, well, what's really being said? Where did that come from? Why am I here living in this space? And is there a possibility that there's somewhere else more suited for me right now, as an individual, right now? And what's very impressive is that we become incredibly good at dissolving, dismantling that reality or that particular house that you live in. Those margins, they just dissolve, and then what is revealed to you is a whole new set of parameters that you can now work with. And they manifest as a decreased heart rate. They manifest as a relaxed body posture, less wrinkles on your forehead, clearer thinking patterns. More responsive, less reactive. But then the prolonged effects of that becomes profound, because now we are gaining not control, but we are now identifying with this element of our human experience, which is called mind, on a level which is creative. So now you are creating using the tool that you've been given. Rather than thinking, wow, this mind is so powerful and so strong, I have no idea what to do with it. I have no idea what to do. So now remember, it's that agile, that intelligent, that it will just do anyways. But it bases its architectural design on a particular dialogue that is not necessarily one that you hear with your inner ear, but one that's felt when you walk into a room, one that's guiding when you have a particular idea that you say, well, that's fantasy, or that's truth, or that's my new reality. So it's all these very subtle workings. So if as many times as we possibly can, we can increase the subtlety and get to a place where the mind is open and expansive, and then just rest in that, then we're actually tuning ourselves to an intelligence that is going beyond all of that infrastructure, that is aiding in the development of all of that infrastructure. So now that aspect of your experience of mind is a bit of a phenomenon. We don't necessarily fully understand how that works, but yet there's an incredible amount of trust that goes into it. So the developmental side of a meditation practice is inching you deeper and deeper into that phenomenon, this mysterious intelligence, and bringing you to a place where you can define it in a very clean way for yourself. Just simply for yourself, which is the most important thing that we can do. Understanding your own environment inwardly and outwardly brings security, safety. Once we feel secure and safe, then we can do incredible things with our life. So that's where art and creativity comes in, after we have food and shelter. Same concept. Within this mysterious phenomenon, as we are increasing an understanding of it and just defining it for ourselves, we simply wait if you feel like you've run ahead. And society and your community will just build itself around it. So you don't even have to proclaim anything because it's just for you. Make your own life that beautiful. But then everything starts to build around it. And that's the marker that you're going the right way, that it's not based in fiction or fantasy, that it's based in truth and reality, because naturally the world begins to shape itself around it. Now that is for me, the real center point of the practice of meditation on an expanded form. So going beyond just the regulation of my body's systems in a positive, healthy way, and piercing the veil into the naturally developing consciousness of a human being. But then what can be applied is all of that creative energy into whatever project you have, whether it be family or career or whatever it is that you are manifesting. Because that's just a simple truth, that we are on a continuous basis manifesting. You are manifesting the perfect yoga pose right now. And if you were fortunate enough to take the practice before this class, your manifestation capabilities have just increased because the environment is that much more suitable for comfort. So it's that exact same development, and it happens continuously. So now if we can apply the simplicity of that to all the complexities that we run into, then it becomes a joyous experience because we're slowing down the process just enough so that then we can keep up with all of our parts. So body, breath, and mind are keeping up to the movement of your life, your environment. So you must sometimes speed it up, but only to the pace, if I were to make a suggestion, that all three parts can maintain the equanimity within that. Or else if the head is running away from the body, then all of a sudden you will eventually have to loop back in Let the body catch up. And that's not me saying that. I think that all of you have proved yourself that point many times. So the identification of the simple fact that you're moving through something is actually a winning combination within a developing meditation practice. So what that means is the space between you and I is something. And it is as intelligent as your mind and all of the systems within your body. So as you speed up and slow down, you're not actually losing any ground of communication. You're actually completely in tune with it. You're just moving at a pace that is suitable for you. So you can think of it like playing a guitar. So if the particular piece that you're playing asks for a rhythm of your strings to move at this rate, but the reality is that you can play it, but only very slowly, and it sounds perfect, but you want to speed it up, you just simply have to develop yourself through that. Connect to the space between your fingers, and then communicate the mechanics of your hand, which is connected to your wrist, which is connected to your elbow, which is connected to your shoulder, and then the core of the body to posture itself in such a way so that it can strengthen. And within that strength, have dexterity and agility in order to move those strings more quickly, or to those strings more quickly. As a simple example, everything is exactly like that, however you want to frame it. So everything is moving at a perfect rate in this concept of space and time. It's just how we are consciously fitting in it. So consciously meaning your awake part that has the dialogue. It's how that dialogue is seeing where you are right now that is making the world and the difference. So this is the most practical application that meditation offers, is the ability to become tuned. So tuned meaning that there's a very specific frequency that you can feel that is comfortable. And the more you can recognize it, then the greater ability you have to become that. So again, the same thing goes for every aspect. So we want to tune ourselves, poise ourselves to communicate in a very specific way. And if there is something that is running inside of you that is not in support of your greater growth and development, then this is not something to be afraid of or subordinate to. It is just simply the calling card. The ticket has come up, and it is now time to just lean in a little bit and work with that pacing and begin to dissolve that which is the messaging modality. So that particular messaging is not necessarily needed anymore. And I keep bringing this up within the most practical aspect of meditation, because this is probably one of the most common things that we run into. Belief system based upon that dialogue that is running in your head. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying maybe it could be refined, but not from an outside source, from an inside place, so that then it's kept within this well of knowledge that is who you are, so that your identity stays fully intact. Does this make sense? Any questions so far? Yes.
Thank you very much for that wonderful
You're very welcome.
talk on what meditation can do and how it does provide us with an opportunity to make choices, and gives you clarity for choices. Just as if you're driving and things are coming up ahead of you and you see them and you make choices before you get there.
Mm-hmm.
And meditation, without doubt, provides us with the opportunity to choose things, something like, if you look around the world, it's got calamity and war and strife, but and fear mongering and all this sort of stuff. And you could buy into that. It's there. You can do that. Or you could choose love.
Mm-hmm.
You could see a child. You could see an elderly person smile. You could see lovely flowers. You could choose the opposite of that. And meditation, without a doubt, you eloquently point that out, gives us that ability to have clarity to make those choices.
Yeah.
However, being a human being, not quite tuned in, sometimes I falter and I go, oh, dang, I missed that one. I could have caught that, but I missed it, right? So I don't beat myself up. I just look at it and go, okay, try it next time. Pick yourself up, start again, and do it again. Oh boy, I went off on a tangent there. Sorry.
That's
I was going to
okay.
go to this one thing that I do. And the question is this, and perhaps because I want to see a positive world, I do outward actions that are kind actions, and that's one of my ways of trying to form a positive world. But I also do inner actions in my mind, and I wanted to know if there's a distinction between, as you spoke of, fantasy and fiction. Because when I'm doing a visualization of, let's just say, I'm breathing in gold light, and I'm breathing in the air, which to me is more powerful, right to my toes, and then expanding out into my body, and then I'm becoming more and more calm and more aware. Those visualizations, are they fantasies? That's the question.
Well, that question is a very good one. And the answer is, we don't know yet until you go to an increasingly more subtle place and see if it can follow you there.
Okay.
So what you're defining as being that much more grounded, that much more truthful, and see if it can get there.
Okay.
And if you still see that and experience that, well, then it's just gotten to the next rung of your discernment.
Mm-hmm.
And if it can keep doing that again and again and again,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, then it is true. But if it cannot keep up to the rigor of your exploration, of your examination, then no, it is not. And that's how wisdom tradition has been around for so very long and been considered an inner science, because it is as rigorous. This is where all the external science comes from, internal science.
Mm-hmm.
So the original scientists were philosophers and
Mm-hmm.
mystics.
Mm-hmm.
Now going to the question of the war and calamities, that piece is found inside of every individual. And that's the amazing thing. And sometimes the part that maybe we don't recognize that we have power within, that we are all contributors to everything that happens in this global experience. And that the work that I do for myself is actually the work within the positive or negative that's happening within the world around me.
So you're making a choice.
100%.
Yeah.
And all these little wars are playing out continuously in one's own mind.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it is just being angry with yourself for the
Mhm.
fingers not moving quite fast enough on the guitar.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Could I ask another question?
Sure.
You could say no.
No, I'm saying yes.
Okay, very good. um, does the wisdom tradition speak on coincidence and synchronicities in one's being? And if so,
Coincidence and synchronicities, and what was the third one?
well, it seems to me there doesn't seem to be coincidences. Always seem to, circumstances happen around me that always work out. No
Mm-hmm.
matter like how dire need, dramatic it may be, they all seem to work out in a very balanced way.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems there's things that line up, like bizarre things happen for me in my personal experiences that seem to line up in a synchronized way, so everything happens in a balanced way for me to have the outcome of my process of growing into this path of yoga.
Yes. Yeah.
So does the wisdom tradition acknowledge synchronicities?
For sure. I mean, it's not necessarily called synchronicity. It's more just the way that life is. So the greater ability we develop around this concept of alignment, in order to really understand alignment, you have to understand what you are aligning yourself with. So you then begin to recognize, I'm aligning my body with my bones and my joints, for instance. And then once I feel that, then I align my body with my breathing, just to keep it simple. And then once I feel that, then I'm aligning my mind, I'm aligning my thoughts, I'm aligning my emotions, I'm even aligning who I am as I defined by my mind to all of that subsequent which we just said, but also to something greater than that. So now what is that you are aligning yourself with? And maybe you have a definition for that something. Well, then what is that? And then what is that? And then what is that? And you get to this place where there's no other explanation for what it is that you're aligning yourself with than maybe a source experience or universal consciousness. Maybe you use the word God. It's not mattering what you say, but there is that which is working through all things that you're aligning yourself with, and then all of a sudden the world becomes very synchronized in its action. So what's happening in the world is happening to you, what's happening to you is happening in the world. And then your requests become, in a sense, granted, but it's not actually granted. It's just the alignment is clear enough that what your thought and your emotion is actually what you truly want.
Mm-hmm.
So what you truly want and what you truly need become one and the same.
Mm-hmm. Instead
of this wanting and this needing becoming greater of distance and into polar opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So if what you want and what you need become one and the same thing, then it's easy for the world to orchestrate.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I understand.
Yeah.
In the future...
That's why the slowing down is so important. Because you're, like the old saying, slowing down to speed up, that's actually what's happening. So as you slow down, then you're able to actually feel and see and be and align and do all these right things so that then you can naturally begin to speed up in the correct course, direction.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Perhaps in the future, at another talk, you could speak about the metaphor that I heard several times in my life, is when one is on this path, they are a drop of consciousness, marrying into the ocean of consciousness. So, and what that means, but don't speak of it now. I just thought I would ask if you would sometime think about that and offer it for us.
Sure.
That would be really beneficial for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully others. Right, thank
Sure.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions about anything to do with meditation or anything? The time is now. This is the whole theme for the year is now. Yes.
What about when you just have a terrible meditation,
Mm-hmm.
full of cravings that don't match up with what you really want?
Mm-hmm.
And if it returns several days in a row, like how how to do in that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's my question.
So then this is like an analysis phase. You're in analysis. It's actually showing you this content that's coming from a place that, let's just say, is not necessarily defined by the observer as being who you are, but rather it's almost like an engine in and of itself that, maybe it's a strong word, but that kind of plagues your meditation experience.
Not all the time, but
No, not all the time, but at that section of time. So the good thing is not to shy away from it, and not also to accept it, but analyze it as third party, third person. So you are literally observing it. You are separate from that. And when you do that, how does the observer feel? Not as an individual who is identifying with the content and becoming it, but literally from the observer perspective. How does that observer feel looking at it?
okay,
Mm-hmm.
great. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then it just washes away just like that. Mm-hmm.
I have a question about, you spoke a lot about like expanding the margins and redefining kind of the exterior boundaries so that you can live in that expanded place. I guess my question is about kind of practically, like, so you talk about questioning and finding the subtlety of maybe a storyline or a narrative that you're telling yourself. And you just spoke about the observer, so maybe that's the answer, but how do you question, like, are you supposed to, without maybe diving into it, I guess, is my question. It's kind of garbled, but.
Yeah, no, I get it. So maybe the easiest technique that you could take on is to ask yourself, who am I in relation to my environment? And when you ask yourself, who am I, you're actually asking for a definition from yourself of what is this reality that you're in, and immediately that creates space. So once you create space, even if it's just the slightest of space, then you're no longer identifying with that, whichever it is that you're observing, as who you are. You are now looking at it from that perspective of the observer. And as you take on that technique, you will become increasingly stronger and quicker at creating space, to the point where now everything is just happening there in front of you. And then at that point, you begin to follow the more subtle place of your sensation. So as you ask, who am I, you actually completely let go of your body and relax. Because this is what we do within a meditation practice, is we totally surrender into the comfort of your experience. And what that does is it frees everything up, opens it up, and then as you breathe, whatever it is that is not meant to be there just simply dissolves. Does this make sense?
Yeah, I like the concept of dissolving. Like, I like the visualization that brings me, and that's kind of helped me in the past. Maybe that I didn't really identify that that's what I was doing, but that dissolving really.
And then the storylines, because as you're dissolving, you're going more subtle, and that storyline may or may not be able to survive. And you probably already have a concept of what is maybe no longer needed any longer. So you're pre-qualifying it, so then it can happen even more quickly. And then it's just basically making a decision that is in support of that expansion of the margin. Mm-hmm. And what may come with that is just a little bit of increased sweating and heat, because sometimes when you step out of your comfort zone, it gets warm. I know that one really well. used to be afraid to talk to people like this. Oh my gosh. No possible way. No way. Any other questions? Hello?
So, I'm kind of still just formulating the words for this year. We've been talking a lot about truth lately, and there are a lot of layers to that truth. And for a long time, I felt like there was so much room in my life to go into these subtler aspects to it. And I felt that the deeper I went into that, the less I honored the reality here that we can see and touch. You know, rent, I could never make it. Food, I was fasting for a couple years, you know. And part of me realized I had to start to honor the fact that I am here. This is 2017. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta. Here we go. But the more that I started honoring that aspect to my truth, I felt like I was losing touch with that space I had for the creative mind and for the, you know, depths that I liked to explore. So here I am with way more responsibilities now because I'm trying to honor this world more. And I don't want to lose that grasp that I had, that space that I had. So what advice do you have for me there?
That's a very good question. Man, all of you have great meditation questions. This has been an equation for a really long time. And the answer tends to be consistent as the question. The magnificence of our reality is that everything happens simultaneously. Everything happens now. That's the phenomenon that we're in. That where we define as being something, then it becomes that. So the subtlety that you speak of actually is right here and now in 2017 in all the responsibility that you have. But it's now about adjusting those settings. It comes back to the tuning of your instrument, so your body, your mind, your breath, your consciousness is actually an instrument, a tool. And we have to just create just little adjustments so that then we can be at that level of creativity and inspiration in everything that we're doing. And it can happen very quickly, but it's about finding the joy and the happiness in the most mundane of things, as it's been put many times. But then within that, see the excitement and relevancy of consciousness as it's expanding here and now. So in what you are doing, there's significance, and consciousness is actually growing. So taking whatever it is that you have as your task in your reality and begin to see it as important. Not only important, but to some extent, because all of you are in privileged lives. You actually have privileged lives. In one part, your life is privileged because you make choices. You have that freedom of choice. And you are on a level choosing to live the life that you are living. So within that, you made the choice. So why did you do that? Why are you here? Why are you here living the reality that you're living now? And cultivate a relationship with it. Not in a way that someone is telling you to get used to sweeping the floor because you're going to be sweeping the floor for the next 15 years. And you might as well enjoy it. But in the way that you want to seek understanding of why you're there and why you chose to be there and what is the significance of it and how can you work with this place this mind, this body, this breathing rhythm to the best of your ability and advantage. Does this make sense? There's a really important reason why you're doing it, or else why would you? Even just for the sake of the survival. So take out all of the spiritual, anything that could be possible, and just for the survival of you as an individual and also as your family and your species as human. It's still incredibly significant why you're doing what you're doing now. And you can make a big list. And then establish your creativity from that place. That's my suggestion anyway. You're welcome. Any last questions? We just have a couple more minutes, but more than enough time.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
What came up for me with respect to meditation and where I'm moving towards is, for example, on a macro level, is it more appropriate to institute change by going within and meditating or marching in, let's say, a parade or a demonstration? And at a micro level, so to speak, within, is it more beneficial or fruitful to be totally silent or visualize, peace in the world?
Mm-hmm.
And by the mere fact of just perhaps being silent, that's where the change will come from.
Mm-hmm. That's a really very good question, actually. In an ideal world, one would do the trick. So in an ideal world, if you sat and did inner work, the world would just ripple out in transformation. In an ideal world, there would be a demonstration and a march, and then the world would ripple out in transformation. But it seems like it's not always so easy as we see it in ideals. So there's place and room for both. And that combination is really powerful. So as you do your inner work, it ripples out. And as you do your outer work, it ripples out. In terms of visualization, it's whatever speaks to you the most easily. So visualization is something that works well for you to stimulate a sensation, because that's actually what is rippling out. Is that vibration that you're keeping within your body is what is emanating outwards, and is actually not contagious, but creates organization within the next brain as a hint that then will eventually, over time, begin to take on as a good suggestion and build on its own. So if it works better for you just to become quiet and feel that, then that's good too. So I think that you're correct all the way around.
Because part of me feels that if I deconstruct, my thought patterns with respect to the visualization, that it's built on an old pattern, old conditioning, preconditioned thoughts, that I'm assuming that what I'm visualizing, let's say that I want to, bless somebody or, create peace in the world, that I'm assuming from my old constructs that there's something wrong with that to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you for that. Because I really want to go to a place where I want to deconstruct all of that.
Yes.
Do I need to march? Do I even need to send peace?
Yeah. And these are really important questions to ask yourself. And I think it comes back to the comment of ideally one works, but often one isn't quite enough in this time, so two are good. And it's just whether or not you are the one who is marching, or you are the one who is just sitting, or you are the one that is doing both. And that is up to you. And I think all of it is very good.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, the more that you can dissolve inside whatever it is that you feel is grasping, holding within you, then the greater work you're doing for the collective. Whatever it is that is holding you, if you can soften that, and that. Because then the march becomes much more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, shall we sit? The great thing about a meditation practice is that everyone sees it from a slightly different perspective. Some of you see meditation from your body. Some of you see meditation as a rhythm of your breathing. Others of you are seeing meditation from the perspective of your mind. All are good. Tonight, I would like you to create an avenue through whatever is the most easy access, so whether it be mind, breath, body. And from that access point, see the shared space between the three. And align those three as closely as possible to each other. And then with all that you have as your sensory experience, observe the quality of space which is shared between the three. And with all of your senses, see if you can detect this mystery of dynamic stillness. The eyes closed, let's bring full deep breaths into the body. And with your inner gaze, see into the quality of space just there in front of you. Each time we visit this space, it is strengthening its ability to maintain itself, canceling out any distraction. And now soften the gaze. And very slowly, gently, allow the eyes to open. That was very good. And within that meditation, if you could just simply recognize where you were in relation to that shared space of the three. Some of you with confidence can say, I was right there the whole time. Others of you with confidence could say, I was there, but I kept watching thoughts, but I was there. Others of you with confidence could say, I was not there for a second. Others could confidently say, I'm not even sure what you're talking about. And all is actually true and relevant. So all those different positions are a reality when it comes to meditation in practice, in process, in development. So we want to just simply recognize where we were in relation to that place. Be able to define it only just to dissolve it again. But the definition of it enables a bit of a connection, like a grounding into a reality of this is where I am now. And the defining of it is putting yourself into the position of the observer. So if you can define it, then you're looking at it. If you're looking at it, you're not that. And maybe definitely, that is the most important part at this moment in time. So to keep establishing the position of the observer in relation to whatever it is that you're experiencing in meditation. And then, like a very finely tuned instrument and a skilled technician of the highest order, we make these very subtle movements, clicking, 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 clicking subtly towards this alignment. So before we're saying, well, what do you align yourself with? What is it that you're aligning yourself with? So it's body, breath, mind, aspects of mind, higher form of mind, aligning to what exactly? We want to create a clear channel, literally, so that it just all flows quite simply through you. Enjoy your evening. Thank you very much. Namaste. How are you, sir? That was good. Good question.